All right. Check. Oh, let me see if it's posted. Good evening. That's good over there. That could be minimized, actually. Doing my usual setup as that I do every night I stream. Trying to get it the way we need it to be. How are you tonight? So many different windows I need to look at. It's crazy. Meh? Why meh? There's a delay between when it shows who's in here and when who's actually talking. But I'm going to wait till more people come in, our usual group of yarnies, as Cinderella refers to us as. Now I can move my keyboard. Past hour or so, I've been doing a lot of prep and changing things and getting this and playing with new lighting. Well, not new lights, but rearranging them. Hopefully, it's not going to be much of a glare as before. Okay. Everybody needs to get in here. Hurry up. It's 8 o'clock. Um, Hold on. Somebody's messaging me that's. Okay. No, no, no. These are virtual backdrops. None of my backdrops are real. And that has something to do with absorbing the light. I mean, I can switch it real quick. I'll show you real quick. I mean, the other one is more white in the background. If I can move it up. But that helps a bit. But I move my lamp from here, direct, basically right above the drop down camera, and I moved it over. And my other lamp, I moved closer. So both of those lamps, and they're the same temperature color of light, are about equal distant. So I think that is helping. Okay. I'm going to wait until Cinderella comes in. Usually one of the first ones here. But yeah, and then I'm going to play with not background, tabletop colors. Because I found some couple options, so you guys will have to let me know. But once we get started in in all of this. Okay. Why is it only showing one viewer? Maybe she glitched out. Anyway. Okay. Oh, yeah. True. She did say that. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna get started or whatever. You've noticed a new background, and we've got a banner up ahead announcing that next week I have decided is Granny Week, with the exception of Sunday. Sunday's still temperature blanket. That's not going to change. But next week, by the end of the week, you will have your fill of grannies. Oh, okay. Welcome, Cinderella. We haven't started yet, but yeah, I was waiting for you to show up. So yeah, next week is Granny Week. Every day, all day. What is the thing? Like what was it? MTV used to be music, all music every day or whatever. Yeah, something like that. So next week's Granny Week. And there's a change in the schedule. So tonight's usual. Saturday will be crochet edging, which I had mentioned that before. Sunday, of course. No, I'm not going to be streaming all day. No, I'm not going to be doing marathon streams. Sunday will be temperature blanket as usual. Tuesday is the official start, technically the official start of Granny Week. There's a couple of things I'm going to go over. Basically, if anybody still is rusty on Granny Squares, which I think my usual viewers are good on Granny Squares, I'm going to show how to do a rectangular granny. And then also on Tuesday, I'm going to do that element or glorious granny pattern that Grammy had shown us the other day. It's real easy to do. So that will be Tuesday. There will be no stream next Thursday like we normally do, because I will not be here. I have plans. And so next Thursday's stream will be done on Friday night. We're just going to bump it back a day. And Friday stream will be quote-unquote Stitch Dictionary. We're doing, just a heads up for next week, we're doing a stitch called Granny Rows, which instead of grannies going in a circle, they're going to go in rows. And then we're going to do the Tunisian granny stitch. There is a Tunisian granny stitch. And then Saturday, to end off the week, will be another Stitch Dictionary day. And we're going to do the granny chevron stitch. So I think by Saturday, you're going to have your fill of granny squares come the 25th. You're going to be like, okay, I don't want any more granny. So, yes. I decided, let's just do it all at once one day. So, tonight, we're going to do the arcade stitch. And before I start, I'm going to ask your opinion. We've got the white here, and hopefully I'm not going to have, well, I'm going to have some shadows. Can't get around that. But hopefully either the white will work, and the yarn I'm using is light colored. If that, for some reason, does not work, I do have some black paper. So, we'll do a little test right now. We'll do a test, and we'll get our swatch, and I will zoom in on this, and it looks a little washed, like yellowed, like the lighting, and I can't do anything about that. It might be... Congratulations! The merino is very, 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 very soft. Even if it's a blend, it's still soft. Congratulations. So, this is how this looks. Then we're going to do a little swap. Is that better? I mean, once we get to stitching, the black is better. Okay. Well, if that's the case, I need to do one thing real quick. Okay. I'm going to tape it down to my cutting mat so it doesn't. Okay. I can always change it back whenever. I got to tape it down because it'll rustle around and make a lot of noise, which is going to irritate me. So to help reduce that, I'm going to tape that down. Okay. And I think changing the lighting angle helps also. Okay. This is what we're going to do. We're doing the arcade stitch. The arcade stitch, the actual stitch, is a 4-row repeat. And you're like, oh my god, that's like a lot to figure out. It's real easy. It's really. Thank you, Norfairy. It's kind of like, to me, it looks like a shell stitch combined with a granny square. That's what this stitch kind of reminds me of. Which actually, doing the structure of it is kind of like that. So if anybody's crocheting along, as usual, gonna go slow. Yeah, it does like fans, yeah. But I think they call it the arcade because it kind of looks like a Roman, like arches, like a Roman arcade or a Greek arcade. Not arcade as in video game arcade, like the historical arcade. Okay. So with this, it is a multiple of 6 chains plus 1. So you can do as many as you want. I'm going to do 24 and then 1 extra chain to be 25. That's so we at least have enough of the repeat. 2, 3, 4, whoops. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 1 more is 25. So I can wait until you get your chains done. If you only want to do 18, you could do 18. Wait. Yeah, 18. I had to think, is 18 a multiple of 6? And it is. And I will try to get as close to the camera as possible. I know there might be a glare because of the light. It's the best I can do. When we go to do this, our first row is a foundation chain, foundation row, which is not part of the 4-row repeat. Off of that. Okay. Cinderella, are we crocheting along? If not, then okay, you ready? Okay. So in the second chain from the hook, you're going to do a single crochet. Real basic. Just like if you were going to do entire singles. So the second from the hook, do a single crochet. I got to click off of that. So after you do that, you're going to chain 3. So we got our single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And now chain 3. And then you're going to skip the next 3 chains in your foundation chain. And then in the fourth one, you're going to do a single crochet. So we've done our first single in the second chain from the hook. Then we've done 3 chains. And then on our foundation, we're going to skip 3 chains. And in the fourth, we're going to do a single. So when we do that, you kind of got this little rectangles formed. So the 3 chains on your foundation chain and the 3 you made are parallel to each other, and there's a single on each end. That makes sense. I gotta click on this. Why does that keep moving over? That's why. Okay? Then in the next 2 chains on your foundation chain, you're going to do a single in each of them. So do a single in the next chain and 1 more single in the following chain. So at the end here where you started, you'll have a single and then 3 chains, which are skipping over the 3 in your foundation, which forms a hole. And then the 3 next chains, you're going to do a single in each of those. You're going to repeat that pattern until you have 5 chains on your foundation chain. So now we're going to chain 3 after you've got those 3 singles into each of those chains, 3 separate standalone singles. After you do that, you're going to chain 3, and then you're going to skip 3 in your foundation, and the fourth one you're going to put in a single. And then the next 2 that follow that, each will get a single. Have I lost anybody yet? Kind of going to make like a almost like a ladder, but the rungs are, yeah, you got these spaces. So you're going to keep doing that until you have 5 chains on your foundation. So it's 3 chains, skip 3 chains, and then you're going to do 3 single crochets. So it's a lot of 3s on this. And I'm to the point where I'm at my 5. So once you get to that point, when you get your 5 on there, we're going to stop, and I'm going to kind of, you're there? Okay. I'll kind of just stop and, like, we're going to visualize something. So back here when we started, we had our foundation chain, and we went into the second chain from the hook to make a single crochet. That makes a single crochet, and that chain that we skipped, that we did not go into, that is basically a turning chain. Just like when you get to the end of the row, you chain and turn. That turning chain counts as a single crochet. So at the end here, you have 2 single crochets, then you've got this space, which is 3 chains wide, then you got 3 singles, space of 3 chains, 3 singles, space of 3 chains, 3 singles. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to chain 3, and then you're going to skip the next 3 on your foundation, and that will leave 2 chains, and each of those 2 chains you're going to put in a single. Just like here at the very beginning, we technically have 2 single crochets at this end. We're going to have 2 single crochets at that end. So you're going to chain 3 just like you've been doing, skip 3 on your foundation chain, and then that will be the last 2, and in those last 2 they each get 1 single. No matter how wide you make this, your ends are going to have 2 here, which is a single, and you're turning. The turning acts as a single. And at the other end, you'll have 2 singles. And that is very washed out. But if I do any more, you won't be able to see anything. Hopefully it's a little bit better. Hopefully that's not too dark. If it's too dark, I can add a little more light. So again, if that makes sense, anything in the middle, if you're going to make this wider, it doesn't matter. You keep the same pattern. It's just at the ends, you'll have 2 singles, and at that end, 2 singles. That's row 1. You'll never do that row again. Everything else has to be built on this. That's how you get started. So now to do row 2, you are going to chain 1 and turn, or if you're the type that turns and then chains 1, it's all the same difference. So what we're going to do is, if we've chained 1 and we've flipped, we're going to skip both of these single crochets, skip both of them, and in this chain space, so we're not going into the individual chains, we're going into that hole that you made, you're going to do 5 double crochets. Okay? So all you've done from the previous row is you chained, when you finished the previous row, you did 1 chain, you turned, and then in that chain, that big chain space, that big hole you made, you do 5 doubles. So let me know when you've got those 5 doubles into that chain space. Okay? Okay, right after those 5 doubles, you'll see you've got 3 single crochets, because that's what you did. Because before, remember when we were doing our single crochets, we're doing in groups of 3. There's 1 here, there's 2 in the middle, and the 3rd one here. You're going to forget about the end ones. You just want to find that middle one, and that middle one gets a single crochet. And you're going to repeat this till you get to your last big old chain space. When you get to this big chain space, put your 5 double crochets in there. So this you don't really have to count. The big chain space, you're going to put 5 double crochets, and then you could easily visualize that middle stitch of the singles there. It's that middle one that pops there. Single crochet into the middle stitch of the row before. Yes. Single crochet in the single crochet, but it's the middle one. That's anytime you do a double is going to go into this loopy thing, I guess you're going to call it, this chain space. So now we've got our big old chain space. We're going to do 5 doubles. If you've ever done shell stitches, you'll do about 5, maybe sometimes 7, depending on the shell, all in one area. So it's kind of like a shell. And then after you've done your 5, you're going to come to your 3 singles that are here, and in the middle stitch of the second one, you're going to put in 1 single crochet. That's going to anchor the end of your fan or your shell down to your previous work. Because if not, it would just be, you'd have a big old hole. That's kind of anchoring it in place. So again, we've got our chain space. That gets 5 doubles. I did my 5. And if you guys are stitching slower, that's fine. It's not a race. As usual, every week, I'll go slow with you guys. And then when you come to your group of 3, you find the middle one, and you do a single. After you do that, you get another chain space of 3. That gets 5. Huh? I didn't get anything to drink before I strained. Oh well. Might have to take an intermission after we do this stitch between this and Tunisian to get something to drink. Okay. We're waiting for Cinderella to catch up. Nope, you're fine. Okay. So just like I mentioned on the previous row, when we started this row, we had one chain, because normally when you do rows, you chain at least one, sometimes two, three, depending on what stitch you're doing. So we did one chain. That counts as a single crochet, that chain we did. So now here at the other end, it's going to match. So you can get it any way you can get it. The top of that turning chain that's there, make sure you go under both loops of it. See that stitch under both loops? Do a single crochet. That is the same as like when we were going along doing this. At the end of each fan, we do a single crochet to anchor it. This just happens to be right where you are. Technically what we did, there were two singles here. We skipped the single that was closest to the fan, and we went into the turning chain. So that right there is row 2. That would be your first row of your repeats. It's a 4-row repeat, so we still have 3 more rows to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3 and turn. And we've got our chain here, and directly below, not below the chain, but like right here, that stitch, we're going to skip that stitch, and we're going to stitch the first double crochet of our fan. So let me hold it here. So we've chained 3, that's our turning chain. We're skipping this stitch here, right where it comes down, where the turning chain comes down. There's a single here that we just made. We're skipping that, and we're going to skip the one that's next to it, this is actually a double crochet that you made for your fan. What we're going to do is the next 3 doubles, so the 3 middle ones of your fan, you had 5 in your fan, the 3 middle ones are each going to get a single crochet. So we've chained our 3, that's our turning chain. And then if we look at our fan here, it's between my thumbs, there's one here and one here, and then you got 3 more in the middle. You're ignoring the first one and the last one. Those 3 that are in the center, each of those gets a single crochet. And it's kind of like we did when we first did our foundation. We were chaining 3, and then we skipped 3 in the chain, and we did 3 singles into the chain, and then we chained 3, and then on the foundation chain, we skipped 3 and did 3. So this is basically the same thing, where we're doing it into the tops of the fans. So to recap, we've chained 3 as our turn, and then when we look at our fan, it's got 5 stitches, because we did 5 doubles. We're ignoring either end. The 3 in the middle each gets a single crochet. Check something. So after we've done that, you're going to chain 3. Again, if everybody's not ready, let me know. Your goo? Goo good. You've been getting in the alcohol? That's okay. So after you have gone into each of those tops of those stitches, you've done those singles, you do 3 chains. You've done 3 chains, and you get to the next fan. You ignore the ends of each of the fan, and the 3 in the middle. See how it makes a fan? It makes a fan shape. The 3 in the middle each get a single. You're going to continue that till we're done our last fan. Once we've gone our singles into the tops of the 3 middle stitches of that last fan, then we'll continue. So it's 3 singles, one each into the middle of the fan, not the middle of the fan, each into the 3 middle of the stitches of the fan. I'm getting tongue-tied. So again, you got 5 in your fan, the 3 in the middle. Each of those are getting 1 single crochet. So there's 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then chain 3. Next fan, we're skipping the first one and the last one. Those 3 in the middle, each of those gets a single. Chain 3, where I'm at my last fan. I don't know how many you have left to go. We're skipping the first and the last of the stitches in that fan, and the 3 there, each one gets a single. Okay? So when we get there, we're going to chain 2 at the end of that row. So we've chained 2 after we've gone and attached to our tops of our fan. So this is where I've joined, where I did my single crochet is into this stitch. We're skipping the next stitch, because again, that's part of the fan. And the very next thing is our turning chain, which is right here from our previous row. You're going to do a single crochet into that. And try to get both loops of the stitch. I know it can be a little fiddly. Get in there however you can get in there. And do a single crochet. That right there is row 3, but it's the second row of the repeat, because remember, our very first row is not part of the repeat. Because originally, when we started this row, let me get it on camera. When we originally started, we chained 3 for the turning chain and did all of our things. And then here, we just did 2 chains, and then we single crocheted into the top of the previous turning chain on that end. And that counts. That creates, yes, you skip the next stitch. The next stitch here would be the double crochet from the fan. Because remember, in this thing here, in this whole pattern, we're not going into the first and last stitches of the fan. So you're going to go past that right there where that's pointing, and I know it's kind of difficult. This is where I did my single, and this is the last double crochet. We're skipping that, and then the next space would be a turning chain. That is where we're going to do a single. So now if you kind of look at it, again, yours might be a mess because it is a complex pattern, but either end looks the same. That's got the same amount of a space for the hole that's there as we have here on that end. The other thing is, if you've noticed, we've got our fans here that we've done, and the hole where the fans all join are here. Well, this row here, we've got holes that are alternating. Yeah, that happens with tension. Because the same thing here, we've got our original row that's got a hole that's where the fans all join. What we just made in this white example, these holes here are these holes where the next fan is going to be formed into. So that's what we're going to do now is we're going to do row 3. Actually, no, row 4. Row 4 is we're going to chain 3. So we chain 3 and flip. We're going to skip that single crochet. That wide looking hole, that's a single crochet. We're skipping that. And into this chain space, we're doing 2 doubles. And think of it this way, those 2 doubles plus that chain 3 that we did as a turn chain, that counts as 3 double crochets. The turning chain will count. And it's on the end, so this is like a partial fan. Double check. So we've chained 3, and we in that big chain space, we've done 2 doubles. And look what we have here again. We got a group of 3 singles. So we're going to ignore the first and last, and in this center one, we're doing a single crochet. That is anchoring this edge of that partial fan we just made. And now we've got a chain space. In that chain space, we're going to do 5 doubles, just like we did previously. Fine. If I've gone too fast just now, let me know. Oh, okay. Well, I was waiting for everybody. I didn't want to get ahead of everybody. So again, the middle of the 3 singles there gets a single, and then the big old space gets 5 doubles. Clay Mika, are you good, or you need me to? Oh, you guys are ahead of me. Alrighty then. Got to catch up. 2. Hey, up, Shelley. I'm glad that you're here. And that's fine if you're lurking, not a problem. 4, 5. And then in the very last one, you get 3 stitches there. And in the center one, you do a single crochet. And then in this chain space that's here at the end, you're going to do 3 doubles. 3 double crochets in there to match what we did here. We had a partial at this end. We did 2, and then the turning chain counted as 1. So real quick, to look at it this way, this row has got full fans. This row doesn't. They've got partial fans on either end. So every other row is going to have full fans at the end, and then the opposite alternating rows are going to have a partial. And the partial consists of 3 doubles into that big old chain space. 1, 2, 3. So that's row 3 of our repeat. We have 1 more row to do. To do this one, once we get our 3 doubles in there, we're going to chain 1 and flip. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to skip the very first double crochet, which is right here. And we will do a single crochet into the next one. So we've skipped the very first double crochet into the next one, because remember, we just did these 3 double crochets into that chain space. So we're skipping the first one when we flip, and in the second one we do a single. Let me just double check something. And then okay. So after we've done that, we're going to chain 3. And we're going to get to our fan again. We find the 3 stitches in the middle of our fan, and each one will get a single. That makes sense? So when we started, we chained 1, skip the first double, and in the second double do a single, chain 3. Then after you chain 3, we've come to this fan. The middle 3 of that fan each gets a single. And now we're at a valley here in between the fans. We chain 3. Now we're at the fan. The middle 3 each get a single. It looks complicated, and the only complicated part is those rows that have the half fans on the end. But it's pretty much the exact same thing over and over. So now we're at a valley, and the valley, you get 3 chains, because where that valley is where the next row, when we do the next row, the stitches are going to go into that. So you're setting up what you're going to build on in the very next row. Then in the next fan, you find the 3 middle ones, and each get a single. And we're at a valley again. We do 3 chains. And then when we're at the end, hold on. When we're at the end, we're skipping. Let me see if I can show this. So I've done my chains already. When you're at the end, you've got, this is a partial fan. You've got a stitch here. This stitch here does not count because that stitch, that's a chain. So that doesn't count. This fan here, we've got a stitch here. That's one. That's two. And then this is the third. So we're going to skip the first one. And then the next one, do a single. You're skipping that. You're skipping that. You're skipping this here. And then this, you do a single. And then you got our chain, our turning chain. The top of that, you do a single. So basically, you were doing this, but instead of 3 here, this only gets 2. And that's the pattern. It's going to take practice, and this one might be one that you might have to rewatch or have the written pattern to follow, because it's pretty much every other row. One row you're making fans, the next row you're making the foundation for the fan, but you're also, everything's offset, alternating, so you're going to have, when you do your fans, you are going to have partial fans at each end. Do you want me to keep going with this? Or did you want me to change gears to the second stitch of the night? Because I can keep going. Because technically that's row 1 through 5. You don't repeat the first row, you repeat 2 through 5. Yeah, that's always the issue with most crochet, trying to work into the turning chain and the top of the turning chain and everything. That's where everybody has an issue, because they're not, the stitches aren't formed like an actual double crochet or a single crochet. Okay. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to take a quick break and get something to drink, and then we will transition into the Tunisian stitch of the night. And I know, Claymaker, you don't have Tunisian hooks, and you said, Cinderella, you weren't going to do any until you do whatever you're going to do to your hooks. Okay, that's fine. You guys can just watch and hang out when I do it, but this, okay, that's fine. This is something you can always go back and look, but tonight, let me, oops. This is the diagonal lattice stitch, which kind of looks like the smocking stitch, Tunisian smocking stitch that we did weeks ago, but it's different, and this is a whole lot easier to do. It is going to curl because it's Tunisian, but doesn't curl as much as some of the other ones. I'll be right back because I got to definitely get something to drink. I'm back. Gotta get my Tunisian hook, and I gotta pull up the instructions just so I don't do it wrong. The Tunisian, let me find the beginning of the strand. The Tunisian diagonal lattice stitch is a 2-row repeat, but it has to be done on an odd number of stitches. Any odd number. So we're going to do 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh. Yeah, that would definitely work. I'm not worried about it too much curling because these are just swatches. But for an actual finished work, that would be a good idea to help it. So I'm going to do 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. To do the first row, the foundation row, which is not technically a row, you're going to do regular Tunisian simple stitch. So the second chain from the hook, insert, pull up a loop, and do that for each of the other stitches in the foundation. Okay. So we've done all of our stitches. And then our return pass is the same as normal. Yarn over through 1, and then yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, until you get only one loop on the hook. Real basic Tunisian simple stitch. Okay, so we've got our stitches, and this is a small sample, much smaller than what I did there. So now our first row of our diagonal stitch, the loop on the hook counts as a stitch, and we're going to ignore the loop that's right below it. See how there's this here right below it? That's on the side. We ignore that, as usual. And then we're going to go under the bars of each of the first two. So we're going to go under that one. We're not going to the back of the work. We're staying parallel. And you go under the first two, yarn over, bring up a loop, hold that loop, and then the very first one you went under, you're going to go under again, yarn over, and bring up a loop. You're going to do that in the next set of 2. So the next set of 2, you work in groups of 2. Next set of 2, you go under both, and it's kind of fiddly. Yarn over, bring up through both, hold the loop, and then go under the very first one in that group, yarn over, and bring up a loop. Continue under the next 2. You're basically stitching in them together. And then you're going to go through the first one of that group and leave it on. And then the next one, you go through the first and the second in the next grouping. Bring it through. And then you're going to go under the first one and bring it through. Now you've got 2 left. You've got the one between my thumbs here. It's kind of hard to see, but that bar there and our edge. So now we're only going to go under the one at a time, that one there, make a regular Tunisian simple, and then we're going to go into the edge, but make certain you get both loops of that edge and go through and bring it up. So the loops are going to be kind of joined together like that. You're still going to have 11 loops. You'll have one by itself, then the next group, all the next groups will all be kind of close to each other, and then our last two will be kind of more separated. Return pass is the same. Yarn over, bring through one. Yarn over, bring through two. Yarn over through two, and so on until you have one loop on the hook. That is row one. Again, this is a 2-row repeat. We're going to get to the end, back to the very beginning where we started. Okay. So in that row that we just did, we went under the first two. Again, we always ignore the edge one. Go under the first two in the groups of two, and at the very end, again, we did the very edge one last, but that last one was left by itself. So now we're going to alternate. We're going to have the one by itself first. So we're only going to go through the first one and do Tunisian simple. And now we're going to go under the next two, bring them together, and then go through the first one of that group, yarn over and bring it through. Same thing with the next two. There's one here, and there's one there. Yarn over and bring it through. And now we go through that first one again. And now we go to the next two, under that one and under that one. Yarn over, bring it through. And then yarn under the very first one of that group. And now we've got two here and our edge. Our edge is always done by itself. So you're going to go under that and that. Yarn over, bring it through. Yarn over, go under the first one, yarn over, bring it through. And now work a Tunisian simple into the edge stitch as normal. And now it looks like that. And that's and then the return pass is the same. And that's the repeat. So I'm going to do a couple more rows. You can actually see how it's forming. When you do the two together, and then you go back and do that first one by itself, it pulls the yarn over and makes that diagonal cross pattern and makes that lattice. And they're all going to be going diagonally in the same direction. So now, and it's not really looking like much because we just started. So now this row is just like the row previous, the first row we did. You go under the first two, yarn over, bring it up, and then go under the first one, yarn over, bring it up, and then you go under the next two, and you do the same thing. Now the next two, you go into that one, and that one, yarn over, bring it up, and under the first one. And I know you guys are just watching and following along. You're not really crocheting along, which is fine. Under the next two, bring it up, and then you go back through the first one you did. And it's important to hold that loop, because if not, it'll come right off if you try to go in there. And bring it up, and now you've got one here and our edge. You're always going to have one on either side, so you alternate back and forth. So this pass, we're going to have one by itself. The next row, we do the one by itself in the beginning. And that's what forms the diagonal pattern, and so it's all offset. And then you're going to do the regular edge like you normally do. And then you return pass, again, is always the same in this pattern. Again, anybody new who's watching and is lurking, that's fine. we're doing the Tunisian diagonal stitch like it says below. I'm going to do a couple more rows. So we end this row here is, oh, let me get it in frame. This row here was a Tunisian simple stitch, one by itself. So now the beginning of this row is one by itself, because everything's going to be shifted a little bit. Now we do the next two, and then you go back and do the first one of that group. So you're just working in small little groups of two at a time, and you always go back and do that first one once more. We got our last two, and I don't know how well it is that you can see. And I'm splitting the yarn. Go back under the first one again, and now we're doing the edge stitch. That one didn't really work out that well, but it still worked. Over. And I'm doing the return pass now. Getting near the end of this row. So let's pull out some of that. You can kind of see how these stitches are going in a diagonal shape pattern. And underneath, they're kind of going the other way. And it makes like a lattice look to it. It looks a little bit better on my original sample. And it's similar to the smocking stitch. The smocking stitch is more textured. This is textured, but the smocking is much more textured than this, and the smocking curls more than this. So this doesn't curl as much. It's still going to curl because it's Tunisian. So it kind of has that similar effect. And that's the diagonal lattice stitch. And I've seen, again, with all the other Tunisian stitches that I've shown, seen people make they'll make different ones, each of a different stitch, but the colors coordinate. So they'll be the same size square, and then they'll piece them together as a blanket. So it's kind of like a sampler type thing. And this would work with a lot of the other Tunisian stitches. So I'm going to go over real quick. I got to look at I've got a running list, and I'm going to have to eventually mark these off as I go. I haven't done any of those yet. So you guys have given me a lot of ideas for stitches or things to do. So I've got a running list of possible things. The next stream, which will be Saturday, will be the edging stitches, which I've mentioned before. So that's going to be partially marked off the list because there's about tons and tons of edgings. Some point I need to do granny flower stitches, which is not going to be next week. We'll have to devote a couple streams to different grannies that have flower patterns in them. I don't know what that means. Claymiko, you had mentioned the crocheted spiral pattern, where it kind of looks like a peppermint candy, which I still have to find that pattern. Cinderella had mentioned that she wanted to see how to use the Nifty Knitters, which okay, I don't have a date for that yet. Weeks ago, she had also mentioned Entrelac, so that was something that we're going to have to touch on in the future. And recently, Rami got me this, and then this is just a preview of what will be to come further in the future. This is a hairpin lace loom. It's to make a certain type of crochet type pattern that you use this loom and then you piece it together. I still have to learn how to use it, so that will be upcoming. And then the other thing that Claymiko had mentioned today was something called the Apache Tears pattern. So let me pull up some pictures of what some of these things are going to look like, just to give you all an idea of things in the distant future of what I'm going to plan on showing. That's not a good picture because that's not, again, this, I'm just searching the internet. There is that here. I'm going to make it bigger. That is hairpin lace. That is using the gadget I just showed. So it's a technique that, again, I haven't learned yet, but will be learning. And the Apache Tears pattern, I'm gonna find a decent pattern of it. It's basic stitches. It's a type of color work. And that's an ugly color combination. Come on. I gotta find a decent one that looks somewhat decent. This one is kind of decent. Okay. That is Apache Tears. It looks complicated, but it's all about color placement and counting. It's basically singles and front post triples. That's all that stitch is. So we will touch on that in the future. Yes, joining. That will be part of Tuesday. I'm going to put that on my calendar. Whoops. Thank you. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I can definitely do that. That will be Tuesday, the beginning of Granny Week. Kind of important. And the joining of grannies can also be used in other squares and other panels and other pieces. It's not just strictly for granny squares. So I think that's going to be it for tonight because I don't have anything else planned, and I wasn't going to go on and on with the diagonal lattice stitch. So again, to recap, we did that one and we did the arcade stitch. That's mine. You didn't need to see my little cardboard box that I keep everything in. So let's go. Sad Fate, yeah. It's only been an hour and 15 minutes. This was a quick, everything went quick today. And I'm also feeling kind of achy and sleepy. Let's just double check. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. Again, tune in Saturday for the first installment of Edge Stitches. Again, we're doing the... I can show a sneak peek. You're going to take over, Norfairy. I will show you a sneak peek for this coming Saturday, if I can get this out correctly without making a total mess of everything. So let me just move this, click this back to here. So, okay, that works. So Saturday we're doing 4 different edge stitches. And they're real basic, real simple. The first one I'm not a big fan of, but I'm going to demonstrate it, and it's super easy. It's called the crab stitch. It's kind of looks like a whip stitch if you're know anything about sewing. It kind of has a similar type look to it. It's very, very basic and simple. So that's the crab stitch. Then we're going to do the shell stitch. And that kind of ties into what we did tonight with the arcade stitch. It's very similar. And if you've ever made, it's a very common, you can do the whole blanket in shells. But that is the shell stitch. It's a very common border. I'm not a big fan of it because everybody does it. It's kind of, but that's the shell stitch. And then we're going to do something called a picot. Oh, I just ripped out my stitch. That's fine. This is a picot stitch, and it's real easy. All it is single crochets, chains, and slip stitches. So that's a picot stitch. It's a very geometric stitch. It sticks up. And then our fancy shell stitch, which incorporates shells with picots. Again, this is just the beginning of stitches. There's a whole lot more stitches out there than those 4. We'll get more elaborate as the year goes on. I didn't want to confuse everybody right away. So let's bring it back to this. Again, thank you, everybody. Check out my YouTube channel. As usual, everything gets uploaded once I'm done streaming. I don't think there's anything else. And everybody get ready for Granny Week next week. Woohoo! Granny Week. You all have a good night and happy streaming.